that on.
Looks like we're live, Vinny.
No.
And that's good because some famous people passed away today.
Well,
we're not on that list yet.
Before we get to the people who passed away, why don't we tell them the people who haven't passed away yet that are on their streets?
It's a long list, but you're here. That's New York Vinny. I'm here. I'm Michael Knight. This is Mikey and Vinny Take on a Monday because it's a Monday.
And we give you our take on it. Very simple stuff, really, when you think about it. It's not hard.
We simplified it right down to the bones. We can't get it any simpler.
Yeah, it's really, I mean, when you think about it, you and I, who live to spread cheer to people all over the place, are here taking on whatever needs to be taken on. And these days, there seems to be a lot that needs to be taken on.
I think our big story would be Kristi Noem's purse being stolen if it wasn't for the Pope passing on.
Well, yeah.
And Secretary Hegseth using his phone with his wife and his inability to keep secrets under his hat.
Well, you know what? I'm going to go with the Pope to start because
I think we have to.
Yeah, since I strangely last night looked at my phone for no reason at midnight.
2 a.m.
Couldn't sleep or whatever time it was. I just couldn't sleep last night. I couldn't get to sleep no matter how hard I tried. I watched the Three Stooges. I watched everything I could watch, and just nothing would do the trick. And I didn't want to.
I was in the same boat.
Yeah, I didn't want to take drugs or anything like that. So I picked up my phone, and there was the news right on the front. That's how you get the news today. It's on your phone. It's no more a kid standing on a corner going, extra, extra, read all about it.
Or this is a special report from NBC News, one of those.
Right. Although those still happen, but you have to be watching TV. And
right.
You have to be watching usually some kind of news service. And,
coffee.
You know, this just wasn't watching news. I tend to stay away from the news these days. So
good luck with that. I don't know how you do that. Good luck with it.
It's not easy, but I try to pick, and actually the phone helps because if I see something come across my phone that I need to know, or I feel like I need to investigate further, I go to the proper news source. So last night, of course, I saw the news about the Pope and turned on CNN, and they were live in St. Peter's at St. Peter's Basilica in the square, and with the reaction of the people, and that's what you want to see.
Have you visited the Vatican?
I have not, although I do have a cross from the Vatican, and I do have a popener.
A pope of what?
A popener.
Well, a beer bottle opener with a pope. Which pope?
John Paul.
The second. The first.
The second, yes. The first didn't stick around long enough.
He didn't have a popener. He put all his effort in closing it out. J.D. Vance didn't visit him the day he died, did he?
Say again?
Did J.D. Vance visit Pope John Paul the first?
No, but you know what? I hate to be funny about this, but there is, because the first thing I thought about is, look at this son of a bitch, J.D. Vance. He killed the Pope now. He dropped the trophy. I forget the other thing that he did. And then now he's killed the Pope. Stay away from this guy.
He's Persian.
But I got the news about the Pope, and I was sad. I like the Pope. You know, listen, Michael, I'm not a full practicing Catholic. I'm not a Nancy Pelosi around this stuff.
Well, I'm in a situation where, as a non-believer, I am fascinated and always have been absolutely fascinated with the ritual of the Roman Catholic Church and the ritual around selecting the Pope and observing the death of a previous Pope and selecting the new one is as fascinating as any of their ritual can be, because it takes all the princes of the church to vote. Although I didn't know if you're over 80, you can't vote. Did you know that? If you're a cardinal and you're 81 or 80 plus, you don't get to vote. I don't know if you have to get on a plane and go to Rome and be part of the festivities and ritual and voting. But I heard that today, and I accept that as that's the truth.
And I also believe that, I mean, so the Pope couldn't have voted for the new Pope, but he would have had to vote for the new Pope anyway. And, it does get confusing. I mean, there's more rats, around the ship there. But anyway, be that as it may, we have had, this Pope was just different than any other Pope that I remember, except, I mean, John Paul II certainly did what he could to bring the church into the 21st century or get the church ready for the 21st century. But, he had a large fault. As much of a man of peace as he was, and as much as he was admired for being a non-Italian Pope, which was the first one he had in a long time, he had his flaws because he hid from the problem.
Yeah, the problem.
To know about the problem. And John Paul II hid from the problem.
Because he had grown up with it. It was part of his full experience as a member of the church.
And to a certain extent, I think that the interim Pope, the German,
Benedict,
he also really ran away from the problem.
Well, you're right about that, and that didn't surprise anybody. He was an arch conservative,
right? But along comes Francis, and not only is he looking at the problem, offering up apologies for the problem, but he's also
calling it a problem
of world leaders. He's telling Donald Trump, I question your faith if you do the things you do. He's telling, Bolsonaro and all of these world leaders who expect to go to Rome or for him to come to them and for him to endorse them. And, you guys are cool.
Not so fast.
And he was a not so fast guy. Exactly. He was a not so fast guy. And that gave me an immense amount of respect for him. And an immense amount of like for him. And also,
he had a way of bringing up those touchy subjects in a quiet, studied, considered way.
I don't know if it was quiet though, Michael. I think he was right out there. I think, Matt, if you want to say somebody brought him up quietly, John Paul was the second was the guy who brought him up quietly. You remember his visit to San Francisco when he touched the person with AIDS, and that was a huge deal.
Right.
At the time, what was that, 84, I guess, 85 or something like that? And the Catholic Church, and he, pushed the Catholic Church into spending a lot of money on people, helping people with AIDS, with hospices and things like that. That I don't know would have ever happened if he didn't go to San Francisco and see the situation. But again, Francis went as far as saying, who am I to question when it came to homosexuality? Who am I
right.
to, if that's what, now he didn't go so far. I mean, the church is an institution that doesn't move quickly. I mean, the only institution I know that moves slower than the church is baseball.
Thank God for the Smokey Burgess rule.
Yeah, and so in that respect, I have to give Pope Francis, I had to give a lot of admiration, a lot of respect, more than I think I've given any other pope. And as you said before, this feeling of that he was that he was one of the people who realized that the church, even though it has incredible numbers of people, needs to change as opposed to just the people changing. We need to get with the times.
And the advancement doesn't have to always be the people changing way ahead of the church, leaving the church behind to catch up and to reposition and to say what we meant to say, what we should have said, what we might have said years ago was this. But as you say, the church doesn't know how to change. It has to be led by the nose sometimes. It can't figure out the evolution on its own. It doesn't come up with an encyclical in a meeting, and from that meeting they'll say, we got a new way to look at this. It's invariably the people who belong to the church who lead it into its next chapter.
Well, look, one of the great things about Pope Francis, excuse me, Mikey, I have a horrible cold. One of the great things about Pope Francis is that
Bless you, my child.
Thank you. He was a Jesuit.
Yeah, that says a lot.
And
they're all business.
The Jesuits are all business. They are all about helping people. They are all about not getting caught up in the trappings of the richness of the church, but
and education.
Using those trappings to educate people and to try to lift people and to try to make the lowest of our society aspire to be the highest of our society. To have a place in the conversation. And I'll never forget. I was in Philly when Benedict, listen to me. When Pope Francis came to America one time, and I remember I was in the airport. I know I have a picture of it somewhere. I didn't think to find it before the show. Of bobblehead dolls sold in the airport.
Of the bobbleheads.
And I just thought that was incredible. That was something else. To see that was incredible. And so as like Nancy Pelosi, like so many people, not just Catholics but people, he was a man of peace, and he tried to influence people. But unfortunately, the people who create the war probably don't believe that there's anything after this.
Well, how many people whose business is war give a damn about love your neighbor? Give a damn about any of the simple, most basic, most talked about teachings of Christianity? How many of them take it seriously enough to even consider what love your neighbor means?
Well,
think of the big order.
Yeah, I would
think of the big order that would mean to someone like Donald Trump. Donald Trump, love your neighbor. What are the chances? The concept evades him.
He's not going to give you love thy neighbor, and he couldn't give you the 10 Commandments if you stuck a gun to his head.
If you spotted him in the first 5,
you probably have to spot him 9. And he has the balls to call himself a Christian. But you know what? I really, if we can avoid it, and I know we won't be able to
keep those 2 names apart.
But yeah, because one, excuse me, really doesn't deserve to be mentioned in the same breath as the other. Donald Trump does not deserve to be mentioned in the same breath, and I just did it with the Pope.
Now, these are stormy times. I'm worried that the conservative branch of the Catholic Church could could regain its strength in terms of the vote, and we would be heading in the wrong direction in terms of the advancement of the worldview of Pope Francis, which, by the way, was an interesting choice of a name. He chose Francis to be Francis of Assisi, another man of peace, and another rule breaker that was that has been remembered in the fondest way. In fact, San Francisco got its name.
Exactly. I saw a great interview with Nancy Pelosi a little while ago, and she was talking about just his presence. And the thing that impressed me when she was talking was the fact that, you know, the bishop in San Francisco, the Archdiocese of San Francisco, has told Nancy Pelosi that she cannot receive communion in San Francisco, in her home church, because
that's the way he feels about it.
Right. Well,
pro-choice. Yeah.
She is pro women's rights. I hate to say pro-abortion, but she is for choice. She's pro-choice. And as we know, the church is not anywhere near that. And she told the story of that when she went to visit the Pope one time, and he knew about this, of course, that the Pope took her in a private part of the basilica
and gave her
communion to her.
I knew it.
And that it wasn't just because it was Nancy Pelosi. No. It wasn't that he was just trying to give her communion, but he was trying to send a message to people that because you don't fully agree with the church, that you should be excluded
from the sacrament.
From the sacrament and what the church believes, and be welcomed into the church. Just because you sin, forgiveness is supposed to be the overriding.
Equally applied every. That's right.
The overriding concept here is that we all sin, but we can be forgiven, and it there's value in people. I tend to agree with that 75% to 85%. I think to some people it is.
It ain't gonna work.
And one of them is, many of them are running our country at the moment. But I hope that the church, I hope that the churches are empty. People aren't going to church like they used to. People don't. They believe in Catholicism because there's over a billion Catholics. So it's not that they don't believe in Catholicism. But
there's a few little troubling details,
like they used to.
Right.
And here in the United States, especially. Now, in Africa, the church is growing. In China,
in Latin America too,
the church is growing. In Latin America, the church is growing. The church is growing everywhere but the United States in most places. So it wouldn't shock me if you saw an African pope. It wouldn't. I'm not saying it's going to happen, but if it did, it wouldn't shock me.
Well, Pope Francis was the first non-European pope in 1,300 years. And although it was newsworthy, it wasn't a shock because he had come from an Italian family that immigrated to Argentina.
Right.
It wasn't so far removed from the roots of the church.
So it's It's going to be something to watch, man. It's really good. I mean, I always love watching these things.
It's going to be a show.
Yeah, because it is. It's a show.
And how many ballots did it take to get Francis? Only 2?
I forget, to be
2.
honest with you.
Yeah, I heard today, and Kristen's telling me two ballots. And I don't know how close he came on the first one, but it certainly happened on the second one. So he must have been in the money.
Yeah,
and they showed pictures of the people who are being considered as front runners, and there's about 8 of them. Some conservative, some liberal, some middle ground, some African, some Asian, some European, of course. But in times of travail and uncertainty, it seems like people go to a given. It wouldn't surprise me to have another Italian as a pope, even if he is liberal.
Yeah, I also think that hopefully that they would look for a pope that is a bit younger. Not a lot, but
they were talking about how unusual it would be for a pope to be in office for 30 years. That's would be ideal, but it's something that they can't always achieve.
Right. I know a guy to watch, from what I've read,
If Jiggerman
is Tobin. I mean, I'm not sure that they would Cardinal Tobin of New Jersey. He might be a guy that could bring some different a different look to the church.
In America would certainly bring a different look. Wow.
Yeah. He would, I think, immediately offer a boost to the church in America. I mean, I think he would, he would be somebody that you could, if you're an American Catholic, you could look at this guy and you might want to go to church again. You might want to, and he's a cruncher.
He's a what?
He's a cruncher. He's a weightlifter.
Oh, really?
Yeah. He's a gym rat.
So he could pick up J.D. Vance and throw him out a window?
Would be nice. So he and one of the other things that he did and he has, and again, I'm not saying that the church is gonna all of a sudden run around and start, open arms to lesbian and gay people and all that kind of stuff, but you do have to create a situation where they feel at least welcome to come to church.
Well, it's hardest, I think, to appeal to the people who were born Roman Catholic, have drifted away from the church because of some of its more conservative positions on social issues for the most part, not religious issues, not issues of was there ever a Mary Magdalene, or was there ever a Judas, or was there ever any event that may be part of the Bible. Those things are not in question for the most part because they're allegorical teachings. But it's how you apply the beliefs of the church as opposed to the beliefs of the Bible to social issues that have distanced the two. And an American pope would have a hard time selling all the aspects of the current church to the people of America. They're generations ahead of the evolution of the church right now. It'd be difficult to match the two.
Yeah. No, I'm not saying that there's not inherent problems with that. I just think that if you look at up and down the list, of people, that he would be an interesting. Um,
Do you
an
recall
interesting.
if Francis was on the short list the last time around,
I think he
or was he a
was. Yeah.
surprise?
No, I don't think. I think he was on the short list. To be honest with you, again, I don't remember. Um, I have to. I think he was though. Michael, talk for a second. I gotta like get something for my nose.
Vinny's got a situation with his cold. He's going to take care of his Schnauzola right now. In fact, you can ask yourself at home right now if you're listening, do you have a nose? Do you have a proboscis? Or do you have a Schnauzola? If you have a Schnauzola, like this, you got to take care of it. I have a Schnauzola. And I believe that came from Jimmy Durante, if I'm not mistaken, or that's where I picked up the word. For those of you who just have a schnoz, you can live in that knowledge that nature has spared you the full Schnauzola. Quick the baseball scores. Giants went to a lot of baseball this year, winning series and taking the edge in series till they got to the Los Angeles Angels. Now, what did the Los Angeles Angels present that the Giants couldn't deal with? They won 2 out of 3, and it was ugly to see the Giants try to win without scoring again. They tried that. They've tried that before. It just doesn't work, and they tried it again. And worse than that, they spoiled 2 very nice pitching outings. So I tip my hat to the Giants for what they've been able to do. And I say shame, shame, shame. Basic as a baseball is, continue to hit the ball and support your winning pitchers. That's the formula for success that they have to put together, Vinny, because they got the Padres and the Dodgers ahead of them, and everybody's playing good baseball here in the West. Now, back to the Pope.
Yeah, it's interesting because my 2 teams that I follow intently, the Mariners and the Mets, had stellar weekends.
Yeah, and needed them too. Mariners. You got to win a lot of baseball to stay even in these leagues. There's a lot of winning baseball going on
in the West, especially right now. Both the American League and the National League West are good divisions, and it's really just watching. The Mets ought to win. The Mets should be winning. I mean, the Mets have a team, although you could say that the Mets pitching is suspect. They don't have the greatest pitching staff in the world. If the Mets had
all the more reason to hit the ball,
but hit the crap out of the ball. I mean, they got some. I mean, that top of the lineup, that first 4 slots in the lineup. If you can get through that without giving up a run, never mind a hit, a run, you've done something.
If you can find Katie, tell her to bar the door. I don't know where she is. They always tell her when it's too late. Tell her before the game to bar the door.
Yeah, it's amazing. And again, I have to get
you have to get something to decongest you.
Man, I'm struggling. I'm sorry.
You'd look good in red. You'd look good dressed as a cardinal, don't you think, Vinny?
Yeah.
Don't you think
I would not be a good church. I'm not even a good church goer, Michael. I'm one of those guys that I go to church, and everybody says the words. They know the words to the mass. I do the. I don't know the words, but I kind of, it's like when you're singing a song and you don't know the line and you just bust your way through it. My mouth thinks something that sounds like it. That's me. But if I had the thing in front of me, And the
The
the thing
prompter.
the thing in the church right now is to go back to the Latin Mass. There are parishes, there are churches, there are societies that believe that
Must be
Catholicism
in
should go
Latin or it ain't real.
back to the Latin Mass. And the funny thing is I remember probably better than I remember the English, because when I grew up, you didn't say the Mass in English until 1965. So my first, I started school in 1961, Catholic school, and
So you
so
had
my
four
first
years, 4 years of
years were
indoctrination
Latin
in
Mass.
Latin.
You had to know the last Mass in Latin, and if you were a little kid, you had to know the last Mass in Latin. There was oh, he's a kid, don't worry about it. You had to learn that crap.
Now here's your Latin test. What did they announce from the from the Pope's window when they have elected a Pope?
Et cum spirituo.
Habemus Papam.
We have a
Uh,
pope.
we have well, and that of course is after the smoke, right?
That's after the smoke, just so you know. That was white smoke. Habemus Papam.
I remember seeing a feature about the smoke years ago on CBS Sunday Morning. It was a great feature. I'd have to go back and look and see if that's.
They install the little stoves in the can't think of the chapel
Sectoral.
In the
where the conclave is held.
Sectoral.
What is it?
Sectoral.
How popular do you think that movie will become this week?
Conclave.
Yeah.
A lot of people are going to be watching it. By the way, I didn't know the conclave is the Latin word for locked with a key.
I don't know if I knew that either.
Habemus conclave.
See? That's what I like about this show, Michael. You learn something all the time. One thing we can never be faulted for.
Michelangelo's frescoes are on the ceiling. It's called the Sistine Chapel. Thank you.
Sistine Chapel, yes. Well, Michelangelo got up there on his back and painted the. I hope to, before I die, even after I die, if that's the way it goes. But I hope to get to Rome, and I hope to get to see the Vatican. It's always fascinated me. The whole deal has fascinated me. That you can have a country that's about 3 blocks long.
Yeah.
And just the beauty and the splendor and the grandeur of the seat of what I grew up believing so much of. I imagine it would be like going to Cooperstown.
It's headquarters.
It's where all of these things that you. And even though I don't know that I believe matter of fact, I know I don't believe as much of it now as I did then. I still have my my missile. I still have my, I mean, I have certain things that I carried with me for years.
It's not an intercontinental ballistic missile, is it?
No, it's a missile that won't harm anybody. It's a missile that you can look at. And my Aunt Rose, God rest her soul, who passed away, you might remember, I don't know, 4 or 5 years ago, pre-COVID, was an avid churchgoer. I mean, she read that book every night. And
What was her church?
In Flushing, New York, right around a block from her house. I can't remember the name of the church offhand. But if I have her stuff, as a matter of fact, I carry it in a box. her missal and her religious stuff, because she was, when I was growing up, probably the most religious person I knew. Besides, I had a cousin who was the principal of the local Catholic high school, Father Walter, and served and was actually mentioned as cardinal material at one point. I don't know, whatever. I remember that he got promoted, and then I kind of lost touch with it after a while.
You got to know somebody.
He was the first principal of Christ the King High School in Middle Village, and I remember going to the opening. He was an educator.
Mm-hmm. Was
he
he Jesuit?
No, he wasn't a Jesuit, but he was an educator, and he he really was one of those people who, and again, I was young, so but he was probably the most religious person I knew. But he was a mover and a shaker. He was an educator, and a priest, but he was a businessman. I mean,
oh yeah,
he got things done. He got that high school built. They took a piece of St. John's Cemetery. And he said, no, I remember this. He made a speech where he said, we're gonna take care of the live people, the kids, the young kids in our diocese. And the Diocese of Brooklyn was the second most powerful diocese in America, next to only the New York Archdiocese. And he was high up in it. I don't know how high he eventually got, because, as I said, I lost touch with him. But I used to see his name in the papers all the time, so he must have come up with some kind of thing, and that's the part of my Catholicism I hold on to. The helping people.
Because it was personal. Yeah.
Well, it was personal, but it was the teaching to me was that you help people. I come from an era in Catholicism where all the hospitals were run by Catholics. That was one of the ways that Catholicism spread its
influence,
its doctrine, its dogma, was that you take care of the sick. You don't leave sick people out in the street, and you don't overcharge sick people. Back when all these hospitals were named St. Mary's and St. John's and or St. Paul's and all of the, the Catholics in the 40s, 50s, and 60s probably ran, and even into the 70s ran. What was the one in San Francisco? Was it St. Francis, the Franciscan health system? I think it was, but it was run by the Catholics.
They were in the healing business.
Yeah, exactly. You can't heal a soul if you don't heal the body. If you have a weak body, you can't have a strong soul. So you have to do what you can do. And I remember growing up in New York, St. Vincent's was the huge hospital in New York. You had New York Hospital, which was, Sloan Kettering and everything on the east side. But down in the village, you had St. Vincent's. St. Vincent's was, if you didn't have money, you went to St. Vincent's and they took care of you. I remember my grandmother went there. Several of my friends who had they had a spectacular psychiatric department.
Interesting.
Several of my friends who had psychiatric problems, drugs, stuff like that, went to St. Vincent's.
And they got good help.
and we're helped out. They had the best doctors, the best facilities. And I know this because I remember my great grandmother being in St. Vincent's when I was a little kid. And right across the street from St. Vincent's, which is now Lenox Hill Hospital, they took over, was the first Blimpie.
Huh.
The original Blimpie, because my father used to take us to get sandwiches there when my mother would be upstairs with my great-grandmother and her mother visiting my great-grandmother in St. Vincent's. And so we would drive, after school, we would drive into Manhattan. And, my father never took the subway. The only time I ever saw my father on the subway is when we went to a ball game.
Get in the car. Here we go.
Yeah. And St. Vincent's was the place. And that was, and I was always proud to be named Vincent because of the hospital.
St. Vinny.
Yeah, it was the place. It was, and again, from an early age, you learned that these people didn't do it because they were in it to make money. They did it because they felt, as Catholics, that their mission was to heal people.
Make a difference.
Whether it was a broken bone, or a broken soul, or a broken heart, or a broken mind. And that's what the Catholics, I think, and this is just one Catholic's opinion, and I still call myself a Catholic. I call myself an American Catholic because I do believe in choice.
It's a different brand.
Yeah. And I've always thought, and I'm very surprised that this hasn't happened, that one day there would be an American Catholic Church.
Separate.
Which would take all of those things that the Catholics that grew up in my age believed in, of faith, hope, and charity, and instill them in an institution that accepted everybody, whether you're gay, whether you're straight, whoever you are. You have a home under this roof.
That's been a tough one for the Catholics throughout their history, because the Mother Church concept doesn't allow for Protestants to make their case and still be Catholic. Doesn't allow for Lutherans to make a different case and still be Catholic. Doesn't allow for Scientologists or Mormons or Presbyterians even to be part of the Catholic Church, just doing it in a different way. Mother Church is Mother Church, and there's been a lot of fight and blood over that one.
Yeah. Yes. And
one thing I was going to mention to you was I have visited the Vatican.
Really?
I went there in when I was right out of high school. I went to Europe with some people from our class, and one of our stops was the Vatican. And the scale and the majesty of the place is worth the trip in itself. You don't have to be Catholic to enjoy that experience.
No, it's not.
And the basilica, the interior, the pillars, the design, the architecture, the structure is on such a scale that it's shocking. There's so much of it. And another element of the shock that I found was all around the basilica, there are chapels all around the church. There's the main altar, of course. But if you wanted to walk in the front door and straight to the altar, it seems like it's hundreds of yards. And all around on the walls, there are little alcoves, chapels for different saints, for different people. And the weird part is there are people buried in the altars.
Of course.
The thing that shocked me was you walk up to an altar and it's got a glass front. Inside is a skeleton dressed in vestments, and it's Saint Bishop somebody who's been there a long time. He put in some good long days, but since they buried him in the thing, he's still there. And to see the body in vestments in an altar in the basilica, that's something I wasn't quite ready for. There wasn't any way to prepare us for that because we were 19 years old, 18, 19 years old. And that's what stuck with me, that this is part of the tradition. That's why all the popes are buried underneath the basilica. They all have their own tomb, and they're all there. And apparently Peter is buried there too. So that would be every pope back to the very beginning has found a home and found a resting place for his remains while he becomes part of the structure of the current church. The idea of all those bodies being stored in that place is a fascinating aspect to a visit to the basilica that I wasn't ready for, that stuck with me all these years.
I didn't know that. I'm fascinated by that, and I really, again, it's a real long shot, but I mean, even if I just go, I've always wanted to go and tour Italy. I never got a chance to when I went to Europe the last time. I never got a chance to go to Italy. I mean, I walked into Italy and then walked back out of it again because I was just time pressed.
Yeah,
there on business to bury my brother, and I better get moving on this because time isn't clicking any it's not going backwards for me, that's for sure.
no, it's going pretty fast forward right now.
Yeah, it really is. And so I think that one of the things that I want to do is get over there and see that before I wind up. I don't think I have the juice to get buried there, but at least I could. I don't know if I'm going to get buried. Actually, the idea of
the next thing he gave his blessing before he
bugging
died.
my ears doesn't appeal to me.
Being in a box is something I can't handle.
Yeah, see, that's the thing for me. I as I have gotten older, I've become more claustrophobic.
Me too.
Yeah, like I now don't want to. I used to have desire to go into a cave and go explore caves. Even the big
Stay out of
caves.
there.
Like now,
that's for kids.
Yeah, I don't even like to watch it on YouTube. Like, I see these people going like Carlsbad cabins and things like that. I'm like, you know what? You go.
Get out of there while you can. Get out of there.
Yeah, you go. Because I know that if that thing collapses, there's no Superman coming.
No. He might hover for a while outside, but he'll go, nothing I can do for them.
Yeah, yeah. Did you color eggs or anything? Did you do anything like that, or do you do anything like that for Easter?
No, not anymore. When Kailani was little.
Yeah,
and the kids had their own pursuits.
Yeah, potatoes were in this year,
Oh, I did not hear that. Colored potatoes?
Yeah, because of the high cost of eggs,
instead of eggs,
people were coloring potatoes. Boiling potatoes and skinning them, peeling them, and then coloring potatoes.
Does that work? Did it look right to you?
Not really. I mean, it was a colored orb. Which, to be honest with you, and I thought about this, and I said, why are we doing that? Why are people doing it? I mean, it's not like you color the egg and then throw it away. I mean, in my house,
color it and you hide it.
I'm pretty sure that in most houses, you colored the egg, you did your design on it, or whatever.
With the wax pencil.
Yeah, with the wax pencil. And then the next morning, you ate the egg. You cracked it. It was a hard-boiled egg. And so you cracked it. Don't know
And
anybody.
now, by the time you hide them 3 or 4 times and find them 3 or 4 times and put them in a basket by a kid, they're not edible anymore. Leave alone with that idea.
Michael, I don't know. We did that when we were kids. I don't remember anybody ever getting sick or having food poisoning from an egg, to be honest with you. I mean, maybe there were, but I don't ever remember. And we did it every year. Now, we didn't hide the eggs. I'll be honest with you. We weren't egg hiding people. We got the baskets. It had the egg. There was one big basket on the dining room table, and it had the eggs in it. And everybody had their own little basket. And we got up, sat down. My father made breakfast, and we ate the hard-boiled eggs.
Did you use the little octagon-shaped spoon-like thing to dunk the eggs? Yeah, to dunk the eggs.
Yeah. And I remember how that was like a big thing, but we ate. We were. My father, as yours, grew up in a depression, so you didn't waste food.
These are eggs. We're eating them.
Yeah, 6 eggs or 8 eggs or a dozen eggs or whatever were not easy to come by in the 30s when my father was growing up. So.
All right, Mario.
In my house, it was still a treat to have meat.
Sure.
I mean, again, and my father was lucky because my grandfather was a grocer and a bootlegger. He made wine and sold wine at the grocery store. So he had
5 ballots.
Hmm?
He was 5 ballots.
Oh, 5 ballots for Francis?
I don't know. I think it was the 5th ballot.
Yeah.
The 5th ballot, 5.
For Francis.
According to Kristen, yes.
MSNBC.
I want a producer too. If you're going to have a producer, I want a producer.
You may have one. In fact, you can have 2. You can have one that tells you good things and one that tells you evil things, like the devil and the angel.
I have one in my head that tells me bad things. Every time I close my eyes.
Well,
very bad things. Every time I shut my eyes. I have that.
I just wanted to mention before we leave today that Kristi Noem, once the governor of North Dakota and now Homeland Security Secretary, got her purse stolen in a restaurant in New York even while she was under the jurisdiction and scrutiny of the Secret Service. And the guy who stole it is on video doing it with a face mask on. So he went into the restaurant wearing a mask, stole her purse. She didn't see it. Secret Service didn't see it. The waiter didn't see it. The bartender missed it. And not only did it have all her phone and her secret
passport, everything,
connections to the world of national security, but she had $3,000 in cash. And you'd think that with all those items in your purse that you would keep some sort of an eye on it. Where was this purse? Where in the world did she put it while she was eating that was so important that it couldn't be by her side? I don't know many women in America with $3,000 cash in their purse out to dinner who would mislay that purse so casually and so thoroughly as to not see a guy with a mask come in and take it. I just don't understand the scenario at all. It doesn't make sense to me.
Well, you can add that to the long list of things about.
She was going to call Pete Hegseth. Yeah, exactly.
Well, yet another on the other end of the phone because the word is rampant around Washington this morning that even Trump has had enough. He's just making his running of, it's not just that he's doing asinine things, but his running of the Pentagon is, according to, I guess there's an article. It's either out or coming out in either Politico or somebody that he fired has written an article about what a living hell it has been at the Pentagon since Hegseth has taken over, and how
I
it
believe
seems
it.
like nobody at the top knows what they're doing. It's
That
being
sounds
run by
about right.
a bunch of incompetents and fools, and the only people that are holding the place together are the generals,
The ones that he hasn't fired yet.
the ones that he hasn't fired. And so, not to say anything bad about talk show hosts, Michael, because I would never do that, but never put a talk show host in to do a man's job.
Don't do it. Just don't do it.
Because
Vinny, on that note, I think we can reconvene on a Wacky Wednesday. We might have a new pope by then.
oh, I don't think so. This is gonna be a while. You ain't gonna see a new pope until September, October, probably in that.
Got to put. You think
But you
that
never
long?
know.
When's the first day of the voting?
Oh well, I mean they got to bury this guy first. So you got a month, and then there's going to be a period of mourning. Then you're going to have to get everybody over there. Then you're going to. I mean, again, I would say I would be shocked if it was before July. What are we? And we're closing in on the end of April. The guy that's I forget what they call him. He's got a funny name. But there's a caretaker administrator. He's an American guy, I think, out of Chicago.
Consigliere.
And well, it's a funny name. A Bobo Ragazza, something like that.
I like
And
that. A bola ragazzo.
Yeah, Bobo Ragazzo. And he's running things.
He
Now,
did
he
so
doesn't
much for
have
LGBTQ.
the complete power, but he but I guess he is the Camerlengo.
You got it?
He's a Camerlengo is who he is. He's the
Okay.
caretaker. He is. It is a role assumed by a cardinal who oversees the Vatican affairs, including the Pope's residence and property, and coordinates preparation for a new papal election or conclave.
Okay. Good job,
following
Vinny.
the death or resignation of a pope. So the Camerlengo is what you want to be these days.
He's calling the shots until we get a new pope.
Till we get a new pope, the Camerlengo is the guy. So if you run into a guy on the street today named Joey Camerlengo, be nice to him.
Give him some room. He's got juice.
Give him room. He knows somebody who knows somebody who knows somebody who knows somebody.
Who really knows somebody.
All right, man. I will see you on Wednesday if the Lord's will and the creek don't rise. And rest in peace.
Prepare yourselves. It's going to be a wacky Wednesday. I can just tell.
I have a funny feeling that something's going to happen between now and then that we'll have joyous fun about, joyous laughter, something. All right, Mikey.
Let's hope so.
Peace, love, and Manischewitz, babe.
What a wine. And what a wafer.
What a wafer. Thank you for listening, everybody. We'll catch up with you on Wednesday. Bye-bye.
See
you.